We're
right.
back.
Hey, we're going back live for the first time. I feel like in years. It's been forever. And I figured coming back to a live stream and why not do it with someone who's very special to my heart? And you're probably like, what are you talking about? We don't even know who this guy is. Well, it's because you haven't been a subscriber to this channel from the very beginning if you have no idea. I'm here with Luke, and Luke has a very similar story to mine. We both around the same age. If you're all wondering if you could switch careers into coding after 30, we're here. And so, Luke, why don't we start with you having give us the introduction of kind of how you jumped in and how you got started, what was the reason for it, and then kind of where you're at today, and then we'll go. Just keep it open conversation.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's really wonderful to see you again. I'm Luke. I switched careers into coding exactly 1 month before my 38th birthday, 41 now. So, over 3 years as the last employed developer in the world. But yeah, so I met Paul when I was trying desperately to break in. We're kind of following the same people, and then we made it happen. So I owe Paul a lot for all the emotional support and encouragement. So it's really cool to talk to you again.
Yeah, no, awesome. I was gonna say, literally, the only support you got from me was like emotional support, having somebody else similar age doing the same thing, hitting the same
Yes,
roadblocks. But the secret I was gonna say to people who are wondering what does it take to switch careers is you just doing the work. Like I've seen Luke, he
amen,
went
man.
he went like hard at it, and like you took the path. I took the React JS and Node.js ecosystem path. You went a little bit. I feel like different path that I might be better if you're
Yeah.
looking to get hired with ASP.NET and C Sharp, which is pretty
hmm
amazing. Like, so if people questioning like what language to learn, just pick one and pick a path and then go for it. But I think there's a lot of value of the path you took, Luke. And I do remember a funny story is when you
Mm.
kind of were trying to break into the industry and you were kind of trying to figure out what project to make. And it was my fault because I didn't know any better. This was when Blazor just came out. I think I encouraged you to make a Blazor app when it was
Oh,
still
really?
not a thing. And I think you did make a Blazor app, and then you complained to me
Oh,
about it because it wasn't
that was your
as
fault.
yeah, it was my fault exactly. So if you're wondering where all that pain came from, it's from me recommending a technology that I had nothing about
Uh huh.
because I haven't really built. And then the cool part is you came and did a stream and you talked about all the cool things that you learned. And this was like really, really early on. So like if you don't
Yeah,
remember, it's
I
perfectly fine.
remember that.
But I thought it was
That was
funny.
terrifying.
You just did it, and you learned probably more about like Blazor than I still know to this
That's
day.
funny. Because I do a lot of Angular also besides .NET, and at my current gig that we just switched a new big project to Blazor from Angular. So
Yeah.
Blazor's cool. It's great for like the .NET people. Outside of .NET, it's like I guess kind of a joke. It doesn't really compete with React, of course, the king, or Angular 2. We can talk about what
Yeah.
stacks are so hot.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, man.
Yeah, that's
I
awesome. I
think
think.
when I got fired from my first gig, I think you were one of the first people I called
Yeah.
when I was like so crazy then.
Oh
I mean, I'm
man.
still crazy, but like have mellowed.
Yeah, life is
So
kind of insane because like a lot of people right now, and we could touch a little bit about it. There's so much stuff to talk about. I do want to talk about the book that you wrote and everything else, and what are you working now and what are you doing now. But this
sure.
idea of like AI taking jobs and replacing everybody, and the fact that like you and I are still kicking, we haven't yet
Yes,
been replaced by AI.
dude.
But
Don't you love the fear right now? Is like so intense
it is
among the
intense.
developers. Like if you just like close your eyes, you can just like feel like a million freaking out developers. Like I've
Oh
never
man.
seen the fear is like because I've known people have been programmers and like I am old enough. You must remember like Y2K. Like I
Yeah.
remember people's
Yeah. Yeah.
parents
Yeah. Of
like
course.
freaking out
Yeah.
about it. Um, and and there was like friends whose parents are programmers and then they like got laid off in the dot-com boom or anything. But the fear is like nothing is like right now. The fear is
Yeah.
so intense. It's incredible. Do you
Yeah.
like the Batman, by the way?
Do I like Batman?
Yes, because
Just
my
in
favorite
general.
Batman
Yeah, yeah.
villain is Scarecrow because he
Okay,
like
yeah, yeah.
feeds off the
The
fear,
fear,
and I
yeah.
feel like right now is like when the fear toxin is like the bomb has gone off, it's released into Gotham City, everyone is like in so much fear, um, and it's such a great time to be a developer, man, because now is the time to push through the fear, get
Yes.
cracked, as the kids say, and then
Yes.
when everything comes down, you'll be in a perfect position. Because like every day, thousands of people are leaving the profession right now.
Right. And another thing is like new people have to be coming in. And if you're kind of paying
Yes,
attention and you're trying to get involved in it, and like a lot of people, like the hardest thing for me and to see is people that just give up learning because they just believe the hype and they just give up. And I think like the more you use
heartbreaking.
the tools, like the more you realize where they fail. And in some places, like they're nice, like if you're building some like a POC or you're
Right.
like using it as a tool, like I use it as a rubber ducky sometimes. But I just recently, like actually today, was working on this. Like I was like, if I were to build a production grade, project that like 1,000 people are going to be working on or using, I kind of looked at the project that I'm part of, the company I work at, Strappy. And then when I
Yeah.
saw just a basic setup, I was like, bro, this is not like a simple thing that AI is just gonna do for me from start to finish. And I was just like, this is way too many moving parts, a lot of stuff to think about. So I think like part of this like AI fear is kind of discouraging because a lot of people quitting, but at the same time, like I think like you said, this is the time to do things and to kind of
Yep.
get better at kind of like your skill or your craft and figure out how to break into the industry. But like from your perspective, I know
Dude,
like you're really big on, and this is something that I give as a tip, advice is when people looking to get hired, number one, pick a tech stack that companies are looking for. And I do recommend like, ASP.NET and C Sharp, just because I find, and especially like ASP.NET on the back end, Angular on the front end, a lot of enterprise companies are doing it. I work mostly in startup land. And so a lot of startup land is all like React and Node.js. So there's that difference.
right.
You can like
Totally.
speak more about it on that. But I
Sure.
remember when you were learning, you kind of talked about, learning ASP.NET, getting really good at like SQL and understanding like the back end, and then just like kind of like
Yeah.
grinding it
You want to
out.
hear
Like, yeah, go. I
my
was gonna
effective
ask you.
.NET stack, and then we can circle back to the robot apocalypse.
Sounds good.
Um, Yeah, so I think .NET is a great stack um, for working for big, boring companies. I think a great way to break in, if you're looking to break in or change careers, is places that have budgets to take a chance on someone, to not expect like, oh my gosh, we have this much runway, we have to make this product work, and it's kind of high pressure startup scene. Really boring big companies. I think there's a lot of opportunity for newer people, for older folks switching careers and stuff like that. And I think also .NET, I would argue, is the most recession resistant stack, because it's a lot of infrastructure, it's a lot of boring banks, healthcare, things that usually like you're keeping the lights on for a company that's doing something that is not necessarily like we're selling the latest amazing software product. And someone's sales team is like, oh, we don't need this this awesome SaaS gizmo anymore. uh, but if you're working for like big banks, keeping the lights on, like right now, I'm just working on nursing software, like really boring kind of stuff. Um, I think that is a nice place to be. .NET sort of tends to pay a little bit less, they say, but it's a good stack because, like, if you think of our civilization runs on these like huge organizations have huge databases, and the database is like the jewel. And .NET is created, invented to sell SQL Server. So everyone's either using SQL Server based database, or they're using Oracle, Java stuff, which I have a lot of friends who do. I don't use Java currently, but between like .NET and Java, that is your like boring programmer world. Um, so, and I do think .NET is like every year kind of crushing Java a little bit more. It's easy to jump between, although people do pigeonhole you. So I think now with the robots apocalypse, it's better to be more broad. It's just going to be the expectations are going to be higher that you can jump into any part of the stack. But like we both follow that Coder Foundry channel. I do agree with them on the hype of like Microsoft is a good stack to look at um,
Yeah, but I
for
was gonna say, uh, Coder Foundry is one of the greatest channels out there on YouTube. Definitely go check it out, subscribe. I love their channel because they give so much great, like they do their live streaming and free advice that,
yeah,
and they don't even talk about the fact that they have a boot camp a lot. Like it's such a, like they don't
right.
even mention it, like you have to do it. And so I love the fact that they're not like hyping, like overselling themselves, but at the same time they give so much great value. And they're one of the reasons like that kind of excited me about learning C sharp. And what was interesting, my first job I had, the front end was React, and then the back end
Okay,
was ASP.NET. And this is what I learned, that nobody uses MongoDB ever. Like, have you ever worked at a company that
right,
ever used MongoDB?
right,
So it's
right.
like
That's
anybody
funny.
learning,
I get
anybody,
startups too.
yeah, they
Well, you
use
know what's funny about
Postgres
that?
now.
Right.
It's like,
Postgres
yeah,
is way better.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
or more common. I'm trying to think of people I know at startups. I think they all use Postgres. You know
Yes.
what's funny? I have one friend who does React at a startup, making over 200K, and
Oh wow.
he, um, they're I don't know how much I can. Well, it's all anonymous, right?
Yeah.
So we're using Postgres backend and Node, and they're like have a lot of money invested in this company, and they've almost got acquired by Microsoft, but Microsoft is like, hey, you should rewrite everything in .NET if you want us to be interested. So then they've like thrown a bunch of resources to like, let's get .NET developers in here, rewrite everything in .NET on the back end at least.
Oh
It's
wow.
crazy. And I
That's
said,
it is crazy. I was gonna say, before we get too far into it, if you were going to give some advice for someone starting to break into the industry today, what would you tell them to focus on and the path to take?
it's I would first really be careful if you want to do this, because it's really was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So first, if you have like a really cool job already, if you're like, I'm a paralegal and I'm making pretty good money and I'm just kind of bored, just think really carefully because like a lot of people I know, um, when I was breaking in, were really excited about the super high salaries, uh, and you can get there, it seems. But most programmers I meet who've been doing it for a long time, like I'm like, ooh, you probably would make more in the trades by a little bit, and you wouldn't have that like pressure of constantly learning, of like competing people with people who are like this is their hobby and passion, as well as a job. Like most people, it's just a job, 9 to 5, But it's kind of like musicians and people play guitar, where like oh, like on the weekend, I'm building projects and I love learning. And I'm kind of like that. So if you have that obsessive personality, it's an awesome profession to switch into, and it's totally doable. But just want to put that caveat out there that it's going to be like way harder than you think, no matter how hard you think it's going to be. So just make sure that you want to do it, and then it's going to be like I tell people, it's going to take 2 years if you're still working full time to do this, and so that freaks a lot of people out. But it took me 2 years, and then like the first year, once you get hired, that year sucks so much. Like I meet people who do luck out, and like I have a really cool job now, and there's they hire people out of college, and they've never. Sorry, I got distracted by the comments. What was I saying? Yes. Takes a long time, so you might have some really bad jobs, and then it's just going to be you're not going to be that useful the first year. Like I think everyone's kind of just a burden to the team when they have less than a year of experience. So to say like not fired just takes like so much extra work. So you've got like 3 really intense years, like doing 20 hours a week when you're not. Um, like working your normal other job because you're trying to switch careers, getting a portfolio together, maybe going to a boot camp, um, and then working like 100 hours a week when you have that first job just because you're terrible. So that's a stressful thing. That's the first thing. That's not really what you asked though,
Yeah,
which
but
is
before you
what's
go,
that?
but this is like such an important point. I'm glad you said it, is because like you do need to be cut to be a developer, not from the standpoint like being super smart. Like I'm like it helps to not be dumb, I guess, but you need to. This is like a lifestyle. Like I realized like the passion I have for coding, because like you said, I like your example, like to a musician who plays guitar on the
Right,
weekend and does playing music all the time. That was me before I started coding. I like coding. I did it for fun. Like who does coding for fun? Well, people that want to pick coding as a career. And so this is like very important point. If you're just thinking of coding as a way for you to make better income, that is what like that is very hard to do, because it is way harder than you think it was going to be. Because I same pain
right,
points you mentioned I had. Like I mean, I ruined my relationship with my fiance because I ended up studying so much that she couldn't
Whoa,
deal with it. Because
dude, that's dark, man.
I was like, I know, because the reality is though, like you need to put in the time, you need to put in the work, and sometimes things. Some people tell me maybe she wasn't the right fiance for you. We could argue that or not, but it comes from like, especially if you have like a family, like you need to tell them like I'm going on this journey, and you gotta be able to kind of understand the amount of effort that it takes and be able to support me, knowing that I'm gonna work. I'm gonna come home from
Right,
work. I'm gonna study. I'm gonna build stuff. And then also, like after I get my first job, that first year, I literally thought every day I was gonna get fired. And then that first
right,
year, I'm at work. I'm like, I did all these tutorials, and none of these tutorials prepared me for work. None of them. And so you're like, go home. You know, it's true too. You go home and you like after work, you're studying like all the stuff that
right,
is specific to the project and the text that
right.
you're working on,
Exactly.
trying to like it's like I don't know, like I didn't even know we're gonna use these type of tools. Like what the hell is like,
Right.
it's just like and that's for me why I make this joke about MongoDB is like I've studied MongoDB, or people back in the day used to do tutorials with Firebase. You're gonna go to
Yes,
work, there's no
Firebase.
Firebase, there's no
Nope.
MongoDB, there's SQL, there's Postgres,
Right.
and if you don't know it, you're like you're gonna be in trouble. And so this
Yeah,
idea
I think
that
going from sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think it's so shocking when you go from like my hobby project has like 2,000 lines of code to there's 50 million lines of code,
Oh my
and
god.
that kind of like tracing skill where you're like no one knows where this problem is. You're a junior, so figure this thing out, and like thinking in terms of like I'm now learning debugging skills, like real debugging skills, and tracing things through. Um, and you're like no one knows this whole code base, of course, but that is just such a like a difficult um, step to make from tiny projects to the real thing. But if
Yeah,
you want actionable advice,
yeah,
or
one
like
one
my
one last thing, one
sorry,
last thing, and then you could go, because like I think this is super important. You kind of alluded to the fact like if your income is like your main motivation, it's way too much work. And if you already have a decent job, let's say making 60, 70, 80 k a year, you're comfortable, you have a family that counts on you, like switching to coding doesn't guarantee that you're going to succeed. So it's like a big
right,
bet that you're making. And so sometimes you got to kind of say like, hey, I have my family, I have these responsibilities, does it make sense? Maybe sometimes going into the trade, and I've done trade in the back in my when I was younger, and it's a really good
yeah, me
like
too.
career path. It's just like the idea is like doing what you like, and so you have to do it because you like it and because you know you will do it no matter what in order to become successful. If you can't kind of like give that kind of sacrifice, it is going to be very hard to stay competitive. I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're in college now, like, I mean, I don't think programming is more lucrative than like becoming a tax attorney or accounting, or like if you just want a white collar job that pays well. There's like other stuff that is definitely worth looking at. Because I remember my first job, they had their whole thing was they had like a very highly ranked internship program in our region, Mid Atlantic. So they pretty much did all their hiring through summer interns. And I met all these young kids whose like parents had forced them to go into programming, because right when it suddenly like jumped where programming was like a high status profession and the salaries at top tech companies were so big that a lot of parents were suddenly like not pressuring the type of parents that would like pressure you into becoming a doctor were suddenly like pressuring their kids into becoming programmers, which I think is kind of bizarre. um, it's not really like that for most folks. So that is a weird thing. So yeah, it's good to have some other kind of like pull towards it besides just wanting a job.
Oh, 100%. Otherwise, it's going to be miserable. Like my first
Yeah.
2 years of work was miserable. It was.
Yeah, man. I'm
It
sorry to
was
hear that.
terrible. But I mean,
That
like,
sounds about right.
you're right. I was about to say, what are you trying to do here, Luke? Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't a walk in the park for you either. And so,
No, no, no,
uh,
man.
yeah, yeah. And so, let's quickly talk about actionable advice.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll
Yeah. So
derail us.
sure, sure. Yeah. Just instead of it, yeah, what I think you should do, which is basically what the Coder Foundry people say, but think, okay, you want to. I don't think portfolios matter. I'm pretty skeptical they even matter in front end focused people who are senior. So if it matters for anyone, it's those people. But I think for breaking in, if you're really going to do the career change thing, then you need to have like a portfolio that looks cool. and it's amazing I broke in with my terrible portfolio. But would uh, focus on that. So I would actually focus on .NET and try to build a bug tracker to just like clone one of the biggest ones. Like we use Azure DevOps now, but what's the one that everyone uses in the world? Like Jira. Just like
Yeah.
try to clone Jira. Don't make anything you're interested in. Like forget about that. Like you're a long way from having. You have to earn the privilege, I think, to do projects that you actually care about. Um,
Yes.
so I think you should try to clone Jira and think, okay, it's going to take like 1,000 focus hours to learn enough to pass an interview and get like any kind of job, even a crappy contracting job. But to get that portfolio, think of like, okay, what would be like 1,000 really focused hours? How good can I make it? How far can I get towards cloning Jira? And I think the last thing on portfolios is now with the AI tools, and that it's so easy to build distributed apps with Aspire in the latest versions of .NET. I would now like think, okay, I'm going to focus on actually really learning one stack, um, back end and front end. But for my portfolio app, I am going to try to clone this thing and do it in Angular, React, and Blazor if you're going to do .NET. Because we're at a place now where that's still going to like impress people that you went across stacks like that. Even though if you know one well, then with AI, it's going to be pretty easy to clone um, a lot of what you've done. So just try to make like a shorter distributed app. And we're also in a world where most of the boring jobs that are going to hire a career changer, they're like so focused on monolith, and anything remotely distributed, like remotely microservices, like you don't need to be like really good at gRPC or Kubernetes or anything. Like that would actually be a huge distraction. But if you just have like Aspire with like a reverse proxy or just like YARP between like my React app with my little Angular thing I put together, um, and Blazor, just the fact that you have like multiple front ends that they can like navigate to, I think that is like right now a really awesome opportunity to impress people who are in the boring corporate world in terms of portfolio.
And yeah, I was
Clone
gonna.
Jira, try to
Yeah.
make it distributed with Aspire. And now, which I would not have said before AI, is like try to use multiple stacks just for the front end portion.
Yeah. The thing I was going to say, like I like, and this is something Coder Foundry been saying for a billion years, is that build one project to rule them all. And basically, what it means is build a
Right,
substantial project that mimics like a project that is out in the wild, like a bug tracker, clone Jira. It has business
right,
purpose, so business people understand what the hell you're talking about. If you build a tic tac toe app or like your Poke card, whatever
right,
thing,
exactly.
it's like it's hard to relate that to like an actual work. But if you tell like I build a thing like Jira and you build that one project to fool them all, like fool them all, to rule them all,
Right,
is
exactly.
because the point is you're fooling people too. But like the point is, it's like if you go in depth on that one project, you're actually going to have to dig deep in learning about like the programming stack that you're learning. It's very hard to build a massive project if like without like not going deep, because there's so many moving parts,
Right,
especially for similar project kind of like the bug tracker like that I built before. It's like you need to have user management, talking to a database, role-based access control. So not only are you learning the front end, you're learning
right,
how to talk to the back end. And then once you have that application, it's like I think now, like the thing I was going to say, probably you should deploy that project. And people could kind of play with it, number one. And also like part of that deployment, like you kind of go from having the project not only living locally, but this kind of like fear that other people are going to use it. And if something breaks, you kind of have to know how to fix things and troubleshoot it while that project is still live. So you learn like, proper, flow of like how to deploy applications in a way where it doesn't disrupt the service of like current users that you have. But the point is like you will never learn that if you just build 1,000 mini apps. And this is the first mistake I've made when I was learning to code, was that I built 1,000 mini apps. The only saving grace was that
right,
I kind of looked at them are little mini building blocks that I could then use to build this whole big projects, because they were slightly different. So like I eventually caught myself and I was like, don't build the same thing over and over again in a different kind of UI, but try to use a different thing that solves a different problem. So like the idea is like if you go to
Right.
school, like you don't learn math level one for 10 years in a row, right? You have to at some point upgrade. So like every project you build should be something new that you're learning that is not easy for you. Otherwise, you're always going to fall into this comfort zone where you're
Right.
building stuff that you already know how to build and you're not really pushing yourself forward. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I totally agree. I think also now, if it's anything shallow, um, it's gonna just be like, oh, this dude just vibe coded this,
Yeah.
or they just cloned it. Like even before AI, I think when I was learning, I was like, everyone's gonna see this project and think I'm like so smart because I put it together. Even though, I mean, I get stuck. I look at like a 6 hour tutorial and I like write out everything the tutorial does, and then put it in my app. Um, and it's a little bit less impressive because people really do think like someone else could have written the project for them. I don't think the project alone is enough, or they just cloned it and like change a few things. They're not gonna really pull down your project and like build it locally. And I think when you're new, just how long things take, you really just don't have time to do multiple things. Like I think it's good to just start with the thing you want to build, and then just learn one little bit of that.
Yeah.
What I don't like about Coder Foundry, I don't really agree with their front end advice because I've met a lot of people who have done their boot camp. I almost did the boot camp. Um, if I hadn't gotten a job when I did, I probably would have ended up going. But they're like so legacy.net based. They'll like make you do like an MVC page,
Mm.
like one with like just Razor pages, and then Blazor. Like they just started doing Blazor. Whereas I think if you're doing .NET, I still think Angular is a really good pairing. Like I get that React is totally
The
dominates the
best.
world
The
outside of
best.
enterprise. Yeah, absolutely. And server side React, like nothing's faster. You can do whatever you want in React. And I'm not super as familiar as I am with Angular, but enterprise still likes Angular because it's like everyone is forced to code the same way.
Yes.
Now
Very
there was like an
opinionated.
opportunity for a while because like Angular JS in like 2010 with Knockout was like the first thing with like uh, two-way modal binding, blah blah blah, like really basic JavaScript stuff. And so like a lot of enterprises have Angular JS. Then that got deprecated in like 2013, totally out of support. So I mentioned that because people are like, well, we've used Angular. We have to make this new project. I guess we'll use real Angular, which is totally different, obviously. And a lot of back end people are like very snobbish about the front end. They're like, oh, front end's easy, back end is real programming. But no, no. Like front end has gotten way more complicated. Uh, so that can be a good way to kind of set yourself apart if you want to like really learn something frustrating like Angular. That has not. It's kind of gone away because I think at .NET World, like more internal tools are just gonna be based in Blazor,
Yeah.
and the whole like people have caught up to that Angular is a super complicated thing now if they're not familiar with front
Yeah.
end. Um,
No.
but I would definitely consider it
Yeah. Yeah. To your
more
point, like
than
I,
using MVC.
yeah, yeah. I think like I lucked out because I worked for ASP.NET shop that was very opinionated, and you have your API separate that from your front end. And so
Right.
we used ASP.NET to build that API, and because of that, you could either have an Angular app. In that case, we did React, but I think like that to me makes sense. And I think
Yeah.
to your point, if someone asked a question about our stack,
Oh,
and then we'll talk about it in just a second. But I was going to say, like to me, I talk to a lot of people in the enterprise level that ASP.NET or Java plus Angular, they're all plenty of jobs
yep.
available, very hot thing to do. And a lot of enterprises, like companies, they don't want to be on a bleeding edge a lot of the times. They want to be on a thing where stability and reliability. And so if you learn something like Angular and ASP.NET, you're learning something that majority of enterprise companies are building. This is not my stack, but this is something I know like you're doing. So let's have you kind of answer that question, like what is your tech stack and like what you're building
Yeah.
apps in?
So I
Yeah.
do Angular for the front end, all versions of .NET, web APIs, as well as like legacy web forms stuff to support SQL Server. So it's all the Microsoft stack except for Angular. Um, And now current gig, they're trying to leave Angular behind and do as much internal tools in like Blazor. But no one outside of .NET is going to use Blazor. There has zero chance of ever competing with any of the real front end frameworks. And like, if you're in the startup world, you're crazy to do anything besides React. Um, but yeah, so that's the stack I use: all .NET and Angular.
Yeah, and I was gonna say for like the Blazor point, I think it was like the answer for people who just want to do C sharp all day. They have like a way
Yep.
to do front end. But if you're okay learning JavaScript and not afraid of taking React or picking up Angular, like I think the approach of having a React or Angular front end and then creating an API with ASP.NET, I
Yeah.
think that's like a very good approach. Um,
Angular's
eh,
getting a lot easier with like all the signals stuff. I think that in the .NET world, for a long time you had to learn RxJS, which is like so difficult for people not used to it to learn, and they were very like the whole thing is built with it, forced to do that. So that was when like I knew some people who were making lots of money as Angular consultants because a lot of people were like buying what they thought was a Honda Civic and it was really like an F-22 Raptor. They're like, this is so complicated. What is an observable? Oh my god! Subjects, behavior, subjects, etc. So that's kind of died down a little bit, but I still think for enterprise, Angular is worth looking at for your front end. But you know what is an important thing to think about if you want to break in is coding Jeopardy. I think a great way to learn is like a lot of people I meet learning, they're like already grinding leak code, and like that's what you do after you have your first job. Um, but to break in, you're probably not going to have any kind of interview that's other than like basically just coding Jeopardy, like them
yeah,
asking you a bunch of stuff about your stack. So I think a really those lead IQ assessments on Pluralsight. I'm like such a huge geek for those because they're pretty right on, and you can take them like every 6 weeks. They've been getting better. So if you get a membership to Pluralsight for learning, and a lot of people are like comfortable learning with video to start off with, I think Pluralsight is pretty great. More for the lead IQ little quizzes. Um, because if you take the .NET one or whatever you're studying, like it's pretty good. If you can get to they like rank you like good with that, you're totally ready for a coding Jeopardy style interview.
yeah. No, that
Um,
makes sense.
I've also found that like people who go with computer science degrees, they're like not actually job ready when they get out. Like maybe they have more background in like how to build a compiler and operating systems and stuff, but especially now, like people are cheating so much in school with ChatGPT that their knowledge is not so great when they graduate, and like a lot of people are going to boot camps after they graduate
Wow, yeah,
college
yeah.
to learn React or something. Um, like you really have to be self-taught, even if you are in like an ideal situation where you have cool internships and have you know you're young and went to school and everything. It still doesn't really save you because they're such a huge disjoint from like what's actually wanted and what is taught in school.
Yeah. That definitely makes sense. Um, that's like very like interesting to me, like where like because I hear like a lot of people like say, oh, you need a computer science degree to get your first job, and then you hear people they come out of their computer science degree unless they build project on the side with like these different frameworks. It's like they're not job ready. So it's kind of interesting. Like whatever side of the fence you are, it's like you're
Right.
still missing something. And I think like for me, it's been like figuring out what is the more important thing you need to know to get the job and then just
Yeah.
focus on those things. Um,
I
and
actually
so,
think I made it. Sorry, I
no, go
was just
ahead.
gonna say way harder for myself by not going to a boot camp because I think if you like are already ready, you've done like okay 2 years, 2 hours a day studying, and then like on Sundays you do 8 hours, and most of that's on your portfolio. But then you're like grinding, like learning stuff, making cards in Anki, like getting better at those lead IQ quizzes, like really learning your stack. And then you go to a boot camp, and no matter what's going on in the economy, like they'll be like, okay, we need people. Send us your like two best students, but you're the person who has like prepared much more because most people going are wanting to they know absolutely nothing and they want to switch careers. But if you're going as in like I'm already job ready, self-taught, and then you go to a boot camp, I think that's a lot smarter. And then you're like helping all the other students. You're going to get good networking out of it. So that is one thing boot camps provide. Although I feel like even Coder Foundry, they did not totally um, as transparent about like how terrible um, your first job is going to be after going to boot camp. Like lots of places, most places are really nice, but they are like I know most of those places feed into like staffing firms and contractors. So and it's very easy to get let go of a contract of a contractor, which is creates an opportunity because it's a lot easier to get hired. But like if you're already a paralegal, if you go to like Coder Foundry, I don't believe your first job out of there is going to be like as chill as whatever corporate career you already have.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think though, like your first job is just gonna be a tough experience because like you're new at something and there's going to be expectation that you're definitely not going to be ready for, and that's kind of
Right.
like part of the first job, like learning, like is to deal with that. I remember my first job, like it took me like almost 4 years to get my first job. I'm a slow learner, but my first job, I felt like in the first 6 months I learned more than I learned in the past 4 years, just because it's all
Absolutely.
on the job like training, and it's just like stressful because there's a lot of stuff that being thrown at you. But I know like you, and I always love having you on the stream because like you're like an actual person that exists in real life. You're not like an influencer who's gonna like try to sell a course to make people think like, oh, this is why you do this thing. I don't sell courses for that particular reason, because even though I have the YouTube channel, like I don't want to sell courses to be my income, because I want my income to be my job, me
Right.
working in the industry. Like, and so to me, like I don't want it to be biased where the things I tell you is to buy my course versus like my real experience of how hard it was to break into the industry. And so like the first
Right.
year for sure is going to be very difficult, but if you persevere, like for instance, uh, like getting your next job is still hard, but maybe a tiny bit easier. And then like I actually like I thought about it. Like I never felt like it was always easy to find a job, but I just happened to be able to get the next opportunity. Uh, so
Mhm.
like
Dude,
I
you know
know
what's
like
crazy is
yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I know people who are career changers, and like I know people who can't pass a technical interview, have never passed a technical interview, that they like often started as contractors, snuck in, like made one relationship with a manager who switched companies and took them with them, and they're making like over 200 grand, and like, but the terrifying interview thing they just like never had to do. It's
Wow.
crazy.
Wow.
That probably won't happen to you if you're listening. That's pretty rare, but it totally does happen. But that is the worst thing about being a developer is like that. Like, why is it every time you switch jobs, it's like competing for the Olympics or something?
Yeah, yeah,
Like the
yeah.
training is so intense to get to whatever the next level is for you. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
like if you're like, oh, okay, I'm good enough at like coding Jeopardy to be a contractor and get different contracting gigs, and you could like get better gigs and into certain things. But then there's like, oh, but you don't know any data structures or algorithms. So if you want to like work for a larger tech company, like that's the next challenge. But each one of these challenges is like a huge commitment in terms of hours after work.
Yeah, no, it is insane. It is like a lifestyle where you, like someone like you live coding. Like that's just something you do. And
Right,
if you want something where you're able to turn off like when you go home, I hear people, some people are able to do it in this profession, but I think like most people don't. That's always like they think about it all the time. Like I mean, there's so many times I woke up in the middle of the night because I had a dream of how I just like solved a bug that I had, and I was like, oh, this is
right.
excellent. It's like,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So no,
Yeah,
it's
I love because I'm terrified of like being bored. Every job I
yes,
had before, I was like
yes,
so bored, and it made me a bad performer. But like with coding, at least it's like I'm always looking forward to working, and I'm never bored because there's always so much to learn. So that part is cool.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think the biggest advantage people in college have is the internships.
yes,
Like
And
But
connections, yeah.
people just like if you do like the trick if you're in college, the formula is totally different, which is like switch your major to computer engineering because it's more low level, and then you like people think you're smarter than just computer science because you had to do like assembly or something, and then get really easy internships every summer at like boring companies like AT&T or something, and it'll be like very easy job. And then the last 2 years, don't do don't work hard at all in school, like super slack off, but still pass, and then just do leak code like so intensely for those 2 years, and then you know go straight from college to like because you have the internships to Microsoft or something, and you'll have a very easy, relaxed life and
Yeah,
make a lot more than the other grind. But yeah, something to keep in mind if you're young.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And I think like that's one thing, like, because a lot of like I didn't go to college to break into the industry, but somebody's like,
Okay,
does this mean that I would always recommend the self-taught? I'm like, no, no. If I could do it again, my daughter right now, she's in the Navy. Like I told her go to
awesome.
college. I'm like, get that degree because the most important part, A, is the college experience, especially if you go in person, and you should go in person so you could like socialize with other people because you're gonna build networks and you're gonna make connections that are gonna lead to
Right.
opportunities. And number two, like having that experience where you have this access to all these internships that you could participate and partake in that will help you to continue to build like your experience and also make connections. And so by the time you graduate, if you've been kind of doing that thing and not just drinking your days
Yes.
away, like you're gonna get it. And I think that's the strength of like school, and you get like really good base education.
Yeah, I think that's the formula. If you're in school, like it is more satisfying to switch careers in a way and like do it all yourself, whatever that means. But if you're in school, it's a different formula, I think. So, what are you remote right now? What do you think about the remote thing? I wanted to ask
So,
you about that.
oh my god, like I have ADHD, and so to me, like it's. I mean, I love it. I'm not gonna lie. Like so, like I've done both, and I'm kind of basically if people tell me to work, I will work, but I will really hate the commute. But I don't mind it. But I
Great.
also prefer like the remote work. And
Yeah.
if I could have it my way, I would remote work all the time. But I'm not deathly
Okay.
against going to work if people made me. But I probably wouldn't like it from the
Okay.
standpoint that um, I would like to travel more. But from productivity standpoint, 100% in person, talking, being able to like lean over a chair and ask a question, or go to someone's desk and look at their screen to work through things.
Great.
That doesn't exist with as well like in remote. In remote, you have to like schedule the time, and it's very hard, especially if you're
Yeah.
working with people in two time zones. So I love
There's such a barrier of
remote.
entry to like ask.
Yes, yes, I love
Like, oh,
remote
I'm gonna
work
put you
like a
back.
little bit better, but I'm not like some people. Oh, I will never take a job that's in like person.
Yeah, I think I'm like too weird for fully remote in a way, and I feel incredibly blessed that I'm fully remote. But it's like never getting FaceTime with people. I think you do lose something. But I wanted to ask you about that because I do think full remote is dying, and I think that is pushed a lot of people out of the industry because a lot of people were like, "I have to be fully remote. This is why I want to become a programmer."
I think
Um,
like if you work for startups like I do, that is a perk,
yeah,
and so like those are not like dying. Like if anything, like you have companies when they like I get applications and the first thing they say remote first, remote first. It's like because they know that's
really,
something like someone would really like. But then I work at a startup company and I'm in all this like startup culture where it's like, think like, things are moving fast, like you need to wear many hats, like and all this other stuff. And so like the issue working for a remote not remote company, for a startup company, you don't have the same job security, and it's a lot of stuff is just like we're gonna make a decision. We have this much runway. Like, are you okay just knowing that maybe this will cut, maybe it won't? And it's like very like kind of stressful in that sense, but fun at the same time. And I feel like in startups, because people know that there's like a certain expectation that might be a little bit different than like a normal boring job, they might like offer remote work as like a perk. And so like in the startup land, like everybody that I work with and talk to, and then me and the type of job offers that I look at, a remote has been the first thing. If the job offering is not remote, like I'm not even going to look at it. And I think that is very skewed and biased from like the type of like sliver I'm in. But to your
Yeah.
point, talking to like the like big companies, enterprise companies, like they're all bringing people back, even if it's like 2 days in the office or like part remote, part office. So I think it is making a comeback, and I'm kind of curious to see how it's gonna like affect like the industry.
Yeah. So I'm like sort of. I do think one is more productive without being in the office for the actual coding, but all the communication stuff is worse. And I do see it from management's perspective because every remote team has like problems with people working multiple jobs, and I think you can get abused a lot more, like in remote, where it has to turn it. There's this either conscious or subconscious like paranoia of how hard is this guy really working. So it can lead to like more like really rigid deadlines, um, and a lot of places that are especially startups fully remote. They use a lot of contractors. They will like chew through people because if they were pushing people really hard in person, someone would walk by and be like, "What is going on in here? Like, why are all these people smell so bad?" and crying. But at home, if everyone's remote, you don't really see that. So I think there's a lot to be said for the hybrid thing. And
Yeah.
how do you get visibility if you're remote, like in a company? Like I don't like it's so hard to meet people like in the company like, oh, what's going on over here, this is another team,
Yeah,
you
so
know
that would be like the
recruit spies.
that would be
When you're
like
remote is hard.
the con is that you're not going to be able to make these type of connections that could lead to like different like changes or shifts in that same company because you met somebody and you talked to them, you were interested in what their department was doing, because you're only going to
Yes,
talk to maybe like your team that you're working on, and so you might be oblivious to others. Like the company I work for, we have like these random meetings that get randomly scheduled with random people that you might work with or you might not work, and they're like
that's so
mandatory
cool.
meetings. Yeah, yeah. So we're lucky in that department is that we're able to kind of meet new folks, talk about what they're doing. And then we also
That's awesome.
have this policy where like I don't know what the term for it is, but you like you're what like it's like you're one email away from reaching out to the CEO directly. So basically we have the policy that you could talk to anybody at any time, meaning you're not wasting their time, but like you could like there's no like gatekeeper. Like if you want to talk to someone above somebody else, you just send them an email, right? And you ask them your question. And so we have that
Right.
policy that makes it very easy for us to like communicate with people. And
That's
then we
awesome, man.
also yeah, yeah, and then we also do like once a year. We just recently had uh, in Paris. We basically
What?
the company. I know because it's a Paris.
What?
I work for a French company. Don't yell at me.
Awesome, man.
And so
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah, and so
Did they
yeah,
actually fly
thank
you
God.
to Paris?
Yes, they did. Thank God.
Oh my
It was
god, I hate you
amazing.
so much.
Even though it was like
Yeah,
three
this
days, I
conversation is
know.
over.
I know exactly. Get out of here. Get out of here. Even though it was like for three
Are you
days, but
serious?
yeah, yeah. But the cool part about
They
like when
paid
you
for you to go from the US to Paris.
Jesus Christ. I'm sorry.
That's
Okay,
amazing.
okay. This is the benefit of a French company.
Dude, hook me up, man.
But the thing, well, the only caveat is like because it's a French company, they have very specific kind of requirements for developers, and you have to be in like a specific time zone. So I don't work on the engineering department, even though like I do some engineering like tasks.
Okay.
But whatever. But
Awesome.
that's besides the point. But like if I wanted to be like a plain like software engineer, like I wouldn't be able to do it because I work at US. I could do like support engineering or like bunch of other stuff, but like not directed, which is kind of like a bummer. I'm like then we actually had people move to France so they could like continue working as engineers. But anyway, and that
Yeah.
makes sense
Wow.
because I think it's with the time zone difference. You just want to make sure that you're in the
But
same time zone, like whatever.
oh
But
yeah. What do you think about people who are like, "Oh, I'm on this team and I'm the remote one, but then there's also people in person and this guy who's in person got promoted over me." I'm like, "Of course. What did you
yeah,
think was going to
yeah, yeah.
happen?"
So
Like,
here's
do you just
what
expect humans to be completely different
so I'm
than
going to
what
give
humans are?
one crazy advice, and this is one of the cool things that we do have that in-person retreat. I went, I talked to everybody, I make sure everybody knows who I am, I make sure I know everybody else, because networking and working with people you like actually still counts in the job. And if someone is a problematic worker and they might be a little bit more better than you, like let's say technically,
Mhm.
they might still get laid off before you do, because a lot of times people don't just want to have like obviously you obviously want to have qualified people at your company, but there's something said to working with people you like. And it's kind of like uh I don't want to say like it's not showing favoritism, but if the culture of the company where everybody gets along, that's the team people want to keep. And that's something like I think you could kind of build a little bit better in person. But I feel like for me, one of like not at the company I work at now, but the previous company I had, the CEO who hired me, he's like after like I've already been working there for 3 months, he goes, Paul, like I didn't hire you because you're the best developer. I was like, well, gee, like why are you telling me that now? It's like, are you gonna lay me off? And he literally said to me, he's like, learning the technical skill, like you're gonna learn it, but dealing with teams and people and making sure everybody likes working with you and you have that synergy and everybody gets along. He's like, that's hard to like teach. And so like I knew that you were going to be a team player and everybody liked you and you get along with everybody so easily that I know that the technical part is not the part that's going to, hold you back because you're going to do whatever it takes to get that. But I also want to make sure that, people enjoy working with you because like the type of stuff we do, it's going to be challenging and hard, and so it's better to make sure that you're on a team that gets along.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. The communication skills are critical. I mean, obviously, people want to work with nice people. I'm available for all expense paid trips to Paris. That sounds awesome. So, what do you think about the robot apocalypse? We should
Yeah,
probably
so
definitely touch on that.
yeah, robot apocalypse. So I am very so oh my god, like I like as part of me, like I want, because I'm very entrepreneurial, like I know you are, you've
Mhm.
tried lots of different things, and I do have this side dream
I'm the
where
world's
one.
worst
Me
and most
too.
pathetic entrepreneur.
Same. It's a title I hold dear to my heart. But the point is, one day I'm like, one day I'll figure something out. And so I'm excited about AI from that entrepreneurial kind of dream is that one day I'll have all these agents and all these things that could help me get more done with the limited time that I have. And it would just be
Right.
like magic. And I could build this cool product that is going to be so amazing. And I could do it as an individual because I have all these AI tools. And then you have this dream and you try and then you quickly realize it's like, well, no, you're not going to be able to do, there's still a lot of issues and you probably
Yeah.
will get
It's
into
totally
like,
disappointing.
yes, right, it
I
is
was expecting
yes,
Terminator 2 Judgment Day, but instead I got a worse Stack Overflow with Mad Libs.
yeah. And so
It's just like
oh my
I'm
god.
disappointed.
So, but as a developer, I'm exactly where you at. And then it's like you have to,
Yeah.
because I find myself like getting into these like loops of like never ending where my problem just doesn't get solved. And I find myself
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to prompt the thing to give me what I want. I already know what I want. And it's like, just do it yourself. And sometimes, and that's what I
Right.
do. I'll just do it myself. And I say sometimes, but it's like, but you have like this kind of like feeling. It's like, no, no, I could figure out how to prompt this to the computer to get this. But there's so many issues. There's so like when you're working on a really big, like an actual project, like company, like huge million lines of codes, like you're just not going to be able to keep all the context, and like you'll make a change, and then
Yeah.
four prompts
Project
afterwards,
scope.
it will destroy the change that it made and gives, yeah, it's a shit
Yeah.
show.
Exactly. Project scope exceeds context window. I mean, there.
Fast.
I see no way that uh, the direction it's going in and what we have is any way replacing any danger of replacing software engineers. I do think it's going to increase the demand for software engineers. And this is not cope. Like, I'm happy to be replaced and go sell cars. Um, I'm burnt out. I'm ready for the next career switch. So that's great. If the AI gets really good, that's fine. Like, I think it's a hugely threatening to the developer ego. But in terms of jobs, which is what people are interested in, I really do not see AI taking people's jobs. I do not think it has been much of a factor in like the freak out. It's adding to the fear big time.
Yeah,
I really just think it's the macroeconomy, but the uh, I see no line of sight for
yeah.
LLMs taking programmer jobs.
So I know that in a startup world, hypothetically or allegedly, when people say they have AI or they use AI, somehow the
Right.
investors like get excited, and maybe helps them raise another round of seed money, or like what, there's like this biased kind of feeling of like, oh, if we have AI, we're in the like the leading by creating and being innovative, and it's like a buzzword like when crypto was a thing, and people were excited about it. Now nobody, like, now it's just
Yes.
scams. And now AI, I'm not thinking that AI is going to be in the same place as like scam, because I still think there's legitimate uses of AI. And for
Oh,
me
it's
as a
usually useful. Yeah.
developer, I'm trying to find that balance between, like, I am optimistic about AI, but trying to find that balance. It's like, let me use AI for all the stupid stuff that I don't want to do, so I could have more of my time to do more important things. And that would be like the ideal situation for,
Yeah. I think.
yeah, for me.
Yeah, I use it a lot in my own projects just because I'm lonely and it's like nice to talk. And I realize I talk to this thing more than Claude than like my wife or child. So there's something kind of demonic about it, but it's uh it's definitely helpful. I don't agree that like beginners should ignore it because then you're not learning the
Yeah.
hard way. I think that's stupid. I
No,
think
yeah.
that
You
it's
learn
not going
faster.
anywhere. So you need to like embrace the change. I know lots of people who refuse to try it because it's like I don't know, so threatening or something.
No, no,
Um,
no.
but
So, oh, go ahead.
I think it's
And then,
helpful. But I
yeah.
don't know if you found like what I find is it just it's not that it's not getting better at writing like very beautiful snippets that compile. Like I'm not saying it's bad. Like that's amazing and that you can describe something. But to really get it to integrate into a big project, you have to describe it in such detail and handhold so much that it's probably like slower than just doing it yourself. Um, so that's what I find. But I find the biggest time sink is because it will like get too excited, and I get too excited, and it takes you kind of like out over your skis. You go too fast, too far, and then it's like,
Yeah.
oh wait, something all the
You
way
can
back here
backtrack.
I
Yeah.
didn't really understand, um, which you don't see as much if you're doing like tic tac toe or like a very simple portfolio kind of thing. Um, so you want to get to the point where you very obviously see like the limits of vibe coding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but where I think it's amazing is like to help learn.
Yes.
Um, like as you know, I have like a lot of passionate about using super memo and very eccentric ways of learning things. But I find I use it a lot for I don't know if you've ever heard of the Cornell technique, which is like an old thing where you would have as you're reading, you're like writing a one sentence summary and a paragraph summary, and then you're writing like
Mm.
little question and answers of like what I
Mm.
just read to like try to
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
understand technical technique. So now I have like three models where I just like when I'm reading really technical articles, just the summary and the Q&A, and then just like not that it'll be always right, but riffing with it. Like, did I really understand this? What is your understanding? Oh, that is awesome. So it's great for
Yeah.
learning, but it's not like a replacing thing.
No.
Like
No.
Commander Data, like on Star Trek: The Next Generation, like yeah, that would be
Amazing,
like
but it's not where
he's
we're
like
at.
actually on your team, and
Yeah.
he like saves every situation. Yeah, that's threatening, I guess, but uh, and then like the fancier models get, it just becomes more verbose.
Yeah.
Like I don't know
And
if you remember
right.
like Claude on it
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
3.5
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
3.7.
Exactly.
I'm like,
It's
dude, chill. Like I get it. You're a
the
super being intelligence.
the
I respect that,
the
but just chill, you know?
yeah, it's funny too with the confidence that will give you the answer. And then as
Yes.
soon as you like push back, it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Now I see what you meant. It's like, wait the hell, you didn't see it the first time. It's
Right.
just like, it's like it will agree. It's very agreeable. It will tell you, yes, you're beautiful. Yes, you're the tallest person in the
Right.
world. Yes, 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 yes. And then you like ask it, but is this correct? And be like, oh no, now I see that this is like, what it's like, it's
Yeah.
just so funny
You're
how
absolutely right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You're always
It's
right,
really good
even
at
when yeah,
conflict de-escalation for
right,
this like program to be so nice to you.
yeah,
Like I'm so sorry.
yeah,
You're absolutely right.
yeah.
That I enjoy.
But one
But
thing that I was going to say, I do find with AI that I love because like you learn to me, like I failed so much in life, so I have this concept in my personal life called failing
right,
forward. It's basically you rate fast, you fall down, you
very
pick yourself
healthy.
up, and everything is like a learning experience. And so what I found out is like
Right.
I remember like got so frustrated using AI, and I built like 20 iterations of the stupid thing that I was trying to figure out, and they were all bad, they were all wrong. But the fact that with
Okay.
the help of AI and communicated to it, and like I basically tried every permutation of the wrong thing. And then after that, I actually knew how to build the thing that I wanted correctly because I saw all the wrong things and where they lead. So sometimes, like when you're doing things by yourself, like you go into this process, you write the code, you do something like whatever, and then you go like quickly, like or do this the whole path to the end, and you're like, oh shit, this was like the wrong path I went on.
Yep.
With AI, I find that you could
Exactly.
iterate within like 5 minutes, and now you have this not one thing that you're working in, but you have like these 10, 20 things that you're like, oh, this is, I'm totally
Right.
like wrong. And it's like, this is what I
And
need
you
to
learn
do
like
actually.
little subtleties where you're
Yes,
like,
100%.
always give me 5 options
Yes.
and then writing like really long prompts. So worth learning to use. But I don't know if you found, but like every time I use cursor or I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put this even more in my editor. Uh, I always go back to just using Vim and then like opening it in a
Yeah.
separate tab
Yeah.
because I don't. Once it's like, okay, I'm gonna change this and do this,
Oh,
this
I don't
change.
like the, yeah,
Fast like
HTML
that.
that
It's like
update stuff automatically. Yeah. It's frustrating.
for the first 2 hours, I feel amazing, and then there's like this hangover of like,
Yeah.
oh, great, wait,
Yeah.
what happened? And I'm ruined. And I've had like so many situations where like 20 hours
Oh, you
in,
gotta
like,
get.
why isn't this working? And then I like go to a book or Stack Overflow, and I'm like, oh, duh.
Yeah.
Um,
So I was gonna
no,
say,
I hate that.
yeah, I have an editor which has like cursor, like where I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, bring it on, like tell me the thing, and then I have VS Code with all that stuff disabled, where I just want to
nice.
do my thing, and then if I have a question, I'll do it in a separate window because I find that the agentic flow, like in actual like stuff, like a lot of times it will fix stuff and then like 8 steps into it, it forgot the things that I made, and then we'll just break something somewhere else. And I just don't have like, I don't want to like go back and try to prompt it to fix it. And I had a great example today. Like I'm learning this like new thing that I kind of don't know about, this like build step, like when you're building like monolithic huge projects. And I first
Yeah,
made like the small version of this app that I already had done. And I said like, hey, can you help me refactor this to fit into like this uh, structured framework using this like, it's this thing called NX and Node, whatever. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But like,
right, right. Yeah, no,
and I asked it to move it, and to me, like it's something that's very straightforward and simple. It like couldn't figure it out, and I had to prompt it. Like, and I was like, all I had to do was copy and paste my front end and server code because like the code itself didn't change. It was just the build step and the process of how like things are handled. And I was just like, you couldn't like figure it out. And so there's things that are amazing about it, and then there's things that are like really
yeah,
frustrating about it. And I think like
mm,
for development, like it's, as long as you're curious and your main mission is to learn the underlying reason how things work underneath the hood as you do them, like I think you're going to be okay in this industry. But if you just trust like what the AI spits out and you're just blindly going for it,
yes,
then you're not in the, you're like, your goal is not to be a developer, your goal is to have a final product. And I'm not saying that's
right.
wrong, like,
You don't
but
want to
that's a
be,
different job. You know what I mean?
yeah, you don't. Most of these AI startups are just a wrapper on ChatGPT. You don't want yourself to just be a wrapper on
Yes,
ChatGPT. That you
unless you're
know
an
nothing
entrepreneur.
for prompting.
Right, and this is the thing I was going to say, unless you're an entrepreneur and
Right.
you're just trying to test ideas that people give you money for, and you're trying 1,000 things and you don't really care
Yeah.
about the code, and you just care about, oh, I built this thing and 20 people gave me $50 for it, okay, this is a great idea, let me hire some software engineers to actually fix
But
it for me now. You know what I mean? It's like,
I think the biggest opportunity it presents is just being more of a super nerd. Like now is the
mm,
time for the super nerds
yes,
because it's already like I think there's like the yin and yang of to get really pretentious programming is like half of it is just like the assembling IKEA furniture, and that has just gotten more and more like dumbed down and step
yeah,
by step. And then the other half is like the really hardcore like reverse engineering debugging
yeah,
stuff because like if you go back if you think like in the 80s, I have this like accounting program in C, it's 2000 lines, it fits on a floppy disk. You could get by with like 3 books on your shelf. There's just like not really that much stuff to look up. But you did have like more comfort with low level and linking and compiling and stuff. uh, but I think what happened is is there's more layers of abstraction and we're asked to do more crazy stuff. Like it's more just like looking up, oh, how does this thing interface with this thing? And then with the internet, that just got easier and easier. And then Stack Overflow, the fancy IDEs. I think most people like nothing exists outside of Stack Overflow and the
yeah,
IDE. So if you can be the super nerd who like likes learning, uh, can use Wireshark or something when something really weird happens, um, or like a more hardcore debugger. I think that's where it's going to go because they want
yeah,
people to move across stacks because it's a lot easier
yeah,
to learn React now that I know Angular with AI.
Yeah,
It's not so crazy for someone to say, okay, rewrite this in a different language that you don't know.
yeah, and
Where before that would have been crazy.
yeah, and I agree with the whole like premise. Like you have to be a super nerd and trying to really like your whole pursuit is figuring out how things work underneath the hood, so you could become better and understand things on a deeper level. But one thing that I'm starting to like, and this is where I'm at. Like I have these like entrepreneur inspirations, and there's just certain other aspects that like interact with like software engineering, but they're slightly off to like the side. And then it's like
Right,
I find myself like, how do you like, so like the question now is not like the things that I want to dive deep on. It's like in 24 hours of the day that I have, where do I spend my time, where it matters most, and then being able to prioritize based on that. And depends on your goal. Like you can't do everything, and so you kind of have to like figure out what niche or like what kind of sliver of things that you want to kind of master
but
things.
right,
But yeah, so I find that
how much
challenge,
does
but I
AI
still like
actually?
agree with.
Right,
Yeah, I was gonna say what I've been kind of how I've been kind of working with that is figuring out how the stuff that not as important that I don't really want to learn a deeper level, try to figure out how to automate it or at least iterate quick through AI. And the things that I really care about that I want to actually dive deep into, like do it myself. Like now I have more time to do that because
yeah.
yeah.
But how much faster do you think it's really making you? Like, do you have agents that like are
No,
actually
no, I mean,
helpful?
I don't think I'm even at that level. But I think like there's like if I'm prototyping something and I know I could, like I have an idea that I want to build out, and all I want is to kind of get a general like kind of like basic layout of the front end, how it kind of works with the moving parts, and to
Yeah,
see if that's something I want to like
yeah,
pursue. Like
totally.
I will use Lovable to just create it for me, and then I'll be like, okay, great, now I got some ideas, and then like maybe I'll use some of that code, maybe I won't, but now I have like I had something that was in my mind that AI spit out for me that I could look at, and now visually I'm able to think much better about the problem and
Right,
think of a solution. So like iterating on certain like
sure.
POCs or fast things like that helps in terms of like building stuff. Like if it's substantial project, like that's something like you're gonna have to do a lot of heavy lifting yourself. That's basically just the reality of it. And so I kind of was this weekend project. I thought it was gonna be a weekend project. Ended up being like, oh no, this I get why my company has 20 engineers that are working on this product, because it's not like a simple thing that you could just prompt away
Right.
like I thought it would be like very easy. But and so like I realized there's just certain things you will have to do most of the heavy lifting, but not to say that you can't use AI. Like for instance, like if you establish the pattern in your code base that gets repeated in multiple places, your AI
Right.
will like it will auto like what's the like IntelliSense. So it'll tell you like, oh, like this is what you it's like boilerplate because you already set it up, and it'll just yeah, it's like repeatable
Yeah.
stuff. But the actual like thinking through like the problem solving, like yeah, like
But it's
it's
like
not like yeah.
not that different really than like I mean, we've had so many code generator tools
Right,
already.
exactly.
Um, and I think it's like maybe twice as productive, but with all the
Yeah.
backtracking, like maybe it's one and a half. And I don't know if you've had
Yeah.
the experience where you use it a lot and then you're like, oh, I'm not looking at Stack Overflow anymore. And then you
Yeah,
go
yeah.
back to doing that and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is way better because I see the debate among people. I don't
Yeah.
like get one very super confident answer and then go off.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like what to me when I think of like what our AI systems are, and it doesn't matter which AI system you use, it's basically a better semantic search of the things that you're looking for, but it doesn't mean that
right.
it's
It's a search
always going to
engine.
be correct. Yeah, it's a just a slightly better search engine that allows you to not have to switch between a couple of different things because you have it all in chat. And what gives
Yeah.
it superpowers, like I'm able to ask questions. And sometimes like I could say like, hey, I'm trying
Oh,
to
totally.
implement this. Here's the link to the documentation. Can you tell me what am I missing? And they'll quickly, because it's a machine, will look through the documentation, find like whatever meaningful patterns, like, oh, hey, you're like not importing this thing that you need to make what like stuff like that. Like
Yeah, totally.
like
I think
yeah,
Perplexity is better than Google now for search. That's like the first
yeah,
place I go
yeah,
because it's so good with the references. One thing
yeah,
has helped me a lot is like whenever I learn a new thing, just automatically have ChatGPT. I'm like make an outrageous mnemonic image to help me remember
yeah.
this. and
That's cool.
it's little weird, silly things like that. It's fun to find those little tricks. But I found it's like increased my midlife crisis more because I am like very nostalgic now for like '90s coding, like stuff I missed out on. Like I've done some Sega Genesis and
Oh no, I'm
NES
jealous
stuff,
now. I wanted to do
but
that. It's I have some
dude, I have like
tutorials
the
that I
best
purchased so I could just sit
Gen.
through. Uh,
I don't know where it is now.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
but like
s-
I feel like maybe Stack Overflow was actually a bigger change because when I failed computer science in college, that was 05, '06 year, and that's I think Stack Overflow came out in '06 because there's definitely no way to look stuff up. It was just like the
yeah,
book and then emailing the professor in the middle of the night in a panic. Uh,
yeah,
so I feel like I missed out on that, like when it was like just like only paper books in coding. That's why if I have like a Groundhog Day experience of my life, I want to explore that because it's like kind of less satisfying whenever you, I don't know, like just googling for answers of like how does this node package work is
yeah.
how does this thing fit in this thing? It's a little less satisfying. Maybe I need to
Man,
do like embedded or something, but
yeah,
all that is kind of a drag. And then like whenever I use AI in a project, it's just like less satisfying, even though it only helped me, it has all the limitations we discussed. But yeah, it's just like kind of a boring thing in a way,
yeah,
but also super cool.
yeah. This is
But it's not going to
amazing.
take your job, man.
No, it's not gonna
It's
take our jobs
people
yet.
need to
But
chill out.
I was gonna
They're
say,
like, well, you're twice as productive. There'll be half as many programmers.
yeah.
It's like, do you have
So, oh, go
the
ahead.
demand for that's just it's what it's increasing demand for is putting more software into everything because now your
Yeah,
toaster is like your buddy and talking to
yeah.
you. So it's just Say's law. Like people love freaking computers. They want more computers. So it's going to be more complex systems that go
Yeah.
further, which is going to need more nerds to be like, oh my god, why did the toaster become self-aware? Someone has to figure that out. It needs a conscious being to like hold the reins and like trace through the
Well,
process of what's going
uh,
on.
that's the thing, like about with AI, you need a human being to hold the reins. And I think that's cool that you said that because without it, it won't do anything. It just can't. And you need someone to
Right.
direct it and guide it. And sometimes you're better off doing that stuff yourself than directing it. And it's like, and so to me, like I do feel like one day we're going to be in a place where things, we're going to have everything and it's going to be like Star Trek, but we're not there yet. But at the same time, like this hype between like people that are founders, they love because they want to sell stuff. As a founder, your job is to make the
Mhm.
money go up, that people invest more money in your company, so you have to make these stories about AI and how it's going to do this. And then like developers, like totally different feeling because they work with it, they see what it's really like. And the
Exactly.
unfortunate part for me is that a lot of decisions are being made off the hype that a lot of the managers and founder people like interact with, not realizing that it is a lot of hype. And another thing, like there's this channel, Eli the Computer Guy. It's like OG. He's been like
Oh yeah, I know
on,
him. Yep.
on YouTube
Mhm.
forever, and he does a lot of very, I don't know, like political statements, which I'm not really keen on. But he also makes some videos where he kind of talks about his opinion. And one of the things you're saying with AI, it's like when companies are laying people off and they're saying it's because we're integrated AI and that helps us to like be more efficient. It's like what they're actually doing is a way for like the manager to save face, where it's like, I didn't fuck up as a manager or the founder of the company. No, we are going to improve, like we're becoming more efficient with AI. But like the issue was, it's like their company either overhired or did not have most efficient like things in place. And so it's like an excuse to say, like if I say like, hey, I'm laying people off because we're not efficient and it just makes no sense, we want to be more lean, versus to say like, oh, we're laying people off because AI is amazing and we're using more. And so it's like, and so I feel like people using AI to like cover the reality of why the layoffs are
Yep.
actually happening,
It's a
but it's not AI.
perfect excuse.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh no, like our huge company is not in trouble. We're just downsizing because of AI. Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's just just a fear. I mean, definitely don't worry about a robot replacing you. A lot of fear of like, oh, now because like Teams is better, uh, outsourcing fears are like all coming back when people have been freaking out about that since the 90s with programmers. Like people need someone there who can like shake someone's hand, who can be in a meeting. Uh, Computers need a conscious person to like step through the code, see what's going on. It's just, but I do think it's making people lazier, and people are going to um, give up a lot sooner. So if you are not like that, if you're not using it to be lazy, I think it's creating going to create a really great
Yeah.
opportunity for people.
So I think it's like the great filter. People that are going to get past that on their journey or not. And if not, they're obviously going to give up too early. But people that get
Right.
past it and focus on like the hard things and focus on constantly learning new things and not using AI as a crutch to build these server level applications, you know, it's like, I feel like AI now is able to hide your imposter syndrome a little bit like longer. But at the end of the day, it's like, you're either going to have the skill to get hired or not. And then the more people that persevere, you're going to have a good career in this industry. And as a developer, like the whole point is, or software engineer, is like problem solving. You will adapt, you will pivot, you will evolve accordingly, because the most important part is not that the tool is replacing you, but it's like you're able to pivot on understanding what your value as a human is to the company and providing it.
Right.
And in development, like solving the hard problems, that's still, I think, done by humans. So I've used AI a lot.
Of course.
It's not going to do something that's new. It's just not
Yes.
capable of it. It can't
It's
unless,
out of date.
yeah, it
Right.
can't.
Mathematically, because it's
Yeah,
predicting what's the most likely, you know? So
yeah,
you have to move past what the popular thing is, like the first answer on Stack Overflow.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And so to
Maybe
me,
like
yeah.
hmm, CRUD apps, like that would be awesome if there was an agent that did like all the basic CRUD stuff.
So
That would be really cool.
let me ask you this question. Actually, this is one thing. Like I have a lot of friends who like front end designers, and I'm a front end developer
Yes.
myself, and I do see the complexity of like building front end the right way, make it accessible. There is this whole element, but I do see that a lot of the full stack engineers who are technically, like, I love the fact when people say full stack, what they really mean, like, I understand front end, but don't ask me to build it because I'm a back end developer. That's what full stack means for people
Right.
wondering.
Means bad
But
at everything, but
yeah, yeah,
especially bad at front end.
yeah, exactly. And so to them, they're saying it's like there's going to be no point of uh, doing front end because it's going to be generated by AI based on like your response. So like the idea, so like if so, the question would be, and I'm taking the weirdest, longest way to answer it, is that do you think as developers break into the industry, they should focus more on the back end because front end might get more easier automated by AI, or do you think it's just a moot point?
I don't. So I think actually front end has gotten harder than back end,
Yeah, really.
which is very unpopular. Back end people really hate that idea.
Yeah, I was about to
But
say.
I think it's actually easier to automate. Like, how do I make a SQL query to do this, and then just put it in a REST API? Then front end gets surprisingly
Oh no, yeah,
complex,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
especially just talking about to web browsers, and they just the expectations. Like, you don't think like if you're rewriting a legacy app, just the expectations on web pages in like the year 2000 versus 25 years later. Um, and people are going home and they're like, "Wait, Netflix looks awesome. Like, why doesn't this other thing we're building?" Um, so there's higher expectations on front end having to look good, be responsive, and I mean, if you think it's so easy, like go make a pull request on Angular Core, try to get a PR accepted into one of these like major front end open source projects. Like it's really complicated how these things actually work. Like, and if you can actually like debug Zone.js and Angular, like just go a layer below the source files, your own source files. Like how is it working with the framework? How is the JavaScript V8 engine really working? Like, can you look in the C++ code of the browser
Yeah, yeah,
and be
yeah.
like,
Oh my
oh, okay,
god,
here's
yeah,
how promises actually work under the hood. Like that stuff is valuable, and the more the AI can speed up, be like, I want to get endpoints, and I want it to look exactly like this page. Here's a picture I took of it on my phone. Um, that's gonna clear space for you doing the really valuable stuff where it
yeah,
gets stuck. Because
yeah,
it's going to be more like being a malware researcher now, where you're like, why is this weird thing happening in Windows? I need to
yeah.
spend 3 weeks in WinDebug. It's going to be more skills like that. So to answer your question, just I think you should be more full stack. Think more full stack in terms of like getting the job done, being
Yeah,
competent enough to be like I can plop you anywhere, you know, optimize this database execution plan, but also make this front end control prettier in
yeah,
CSS. Like those skills, I think that's my impression of just like talking to lots of people where it's more going. But for me to go from like I could get a full stack job to being like a front end only job would take a lot of buckling down
yeah.
because
It's
you would
so
like laugh hysterically if you saw me
yeah.
make a site in React.
Here's the thing I was going to say. Like a lot of people think that, and this is what I was going to say. Like because like whatever people's opinions are, like I had an opinion about front end and maybe it's going to be replaced by AI based on like kind of like how I interact. But I have a friend who works as like a lead architect at a big ass company, and literally they have a
Nice.
bunch of full stack engineers, right? And then they need to build new front end project. None of the full stack engineers are capable of doing it, and he's like, stop calling yourself full stack. You're back end. We need an actual
Right.
front end engineer because this stuff is hard. And there's like, and we need to build it, and none of you are able to do it. And to me, I was just like, that's so weird to think about it because I would think full stack is like, oh, you obviously could do everything because you're a unicorn. But the truth is, it's like every
No, no,
specific
no.
thing has a very specific kind of like skill set. And if you're not living in that land, you're not going to be able to do it.
Right. But a lot of people, man, I mean, they say front end, but maybe they suffered a lot to get into their position, but now their job is just maintaining one button, you know?
Yeah,
And
amazing. I
like
would love that
I know
job.
people who have incredibly easy jobs, some and some really hard jobs, but I think it's yeah, front end can get really complex, but I do think it's important to keep in mind like if you have full stack, um, you're a little bit more recession
Yeah.
resistant
Yes.
because they feel like, oh, the full stack engineers, we can get them to do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Until you
when
ask
people
them
are
to
freaking
do
out, it's a little
hard
harder
front
if you're
end
front
stuff.
end only.
No, no, but 100%. I think you should aim to be full stack, and then you could kind of tweak how far down the back end, the
Yeah,
front end you go. But I was gonna,
but yeah,
yeah,
I was gonna
yeah,
say, I think also if you're front or back, like learning CLI tools and like using the terminal is a really cool way to set yourself apart.
yes,
Um, just because if you have like Tmux open or Vim people, you look like more like a super nerd, which I think is important. But also, you
no,
can do so much with the command line. Like if you're in Windows world, just learning
dude.
PowerShell,
I
and
tried.
it's an easy thing to look up how to do stuff,
Yeah.
but it makes
PowerShell
a
and
huge
writing
difference.
bash
PowerShell is
scripts,
awesome.
okay, sounds good. But like using Vim,
Yeah.
I'm like, no. Like this is the one
No,
thing I'm gonna be like, no point of me
I use Vim
spending
by the
time
way.
here. I know you're like the type of guy that would use Vim. No, but it's not that I don't want to learn. It's just like I have so many other things that I want to do, and like I have
Sure.
like I'm like I'm gonna record a video for my YouTube channel, like, and it's like that's time, or like I wanna, and so you kind of have to prioritize like Vim though. Like I'm not gonna lie to you, like if someone came up to me and they're like I do Vim, I'll be like, you're my hero and I love you and I will marry you right now. But because it's impressive and like the speed and how cool it is, and I just can't bring myself. Like I tried really going hardcore. It's like I'm gonna write this C code because I was trying to build like a some C thing, which I already forgot what it
Cool.
was. And I'm gonna use Vim so I could call myself a real developer. Because like in my mind, I'm like, unless you're doing like C with Vim or maybe even yeah, it's like you're not that cool yet. And so I was like, let me try that. And I tried that. They have actually for anybody interested. Uh, like I just refused to learn it, but they do have like a lot of resources. They actually have a Vim command video game, which I thought was like really fun and
Oh yeah,
awesome.
that thing is really cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that's like a good way. I just like I'm just like, do I do Vim or do I spend extra hour doing this other thing? And that's kind of where I
Yeah, totally.
took. But I understand. But I am jealous of all the Vim people.
It
The
does make boring things like more fun
but
because you're like,
uh,
oh, I can learn how to do this better in
yeah,
Vim.
but at the end of the day, if you're like in Linux or like you're making something like you have like a VPS and you have to like update something, you're using like Nano like in the terminal, so
Yeah.
you could like you might as well like just add like install Vim. But like I do like that idea where you're just able to do everything from the terminal, which is kind of like make
Oh yeah,
makes
totally.
makes you like a superhero. I seen a dude like play a video in the terminal. Like I'm
Oh
like
yeah, those nerds,
impressive.
man.
Yeah,
These nerds.
impressive.
But most people are not going to go outside of their IDE no matter what.
Yeah,
So there's just so many things that you can't really do, and then you're like, what did I just do? How do I
yeah.
communicate? Write a script to do this again. So I think that's uh that's a cool thing. I should probably bounce kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
soon.
was about to say I don't want to keep you
Mhm.
too long. So basically, Luke, always pleasure talking to you. Amazing. I'm
Yes.
still
Oh,
amazed with like your amazing journey. Yes. So Luke wrote a
look,
book
I have to. I'll
because
be executed if I don't plug the book.
yeah. So Luke wrote that book, and thank you. And I completely like forgot about it. So
No
one,
worries, man.
let's do like real
I'll hold it here.
fast round, and we could do round two also. Like if you have a round three actually, because
Sure,
we
man.
actually have round four.
You should
We
meet
and yeah.
the
Street.
other guy in here, Gary. Really amazing
Oh,
story. Much
nice.
much more successful than me. Switched careers after 30.
Oh,
Was an
sick.
immigrant from the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
Was homeless for a while in New
Wow.
York,
Right.
and
Can't
really
so we
amazing
can't
guy.
complain about our like struggles. Forget that shit. Anyway, I was gonna say like so you wrote a
I don't know
book.
about that.
The okay. So you wrote a book and like the point was like uh were you like I'm gonna write a book so I could be more of an expert and when someone's on LinkedIn is ready to hire me, I could just send them my book with my autograph on it. Was
Yes,
that like the deal, basically?
I know this guy who is a sales trainer actually, and I've known him for a long time. And he's like, dude, whatever profession you're in, just like write a book,
That is
and
so
people will
true.
think you're smart.
It's
And I'm
true.
like, really? This
It's true.
seems ridiculous. And he's like, it doesn't matter if you just make it at Staples. Just like get any kind of book going. And I'm like, okay, I'll take you up on that. And I also gave me the validation I crave. And then it was a way mainly to procrastinate doing leak code because I was very intimidated about finally learning algorithms and data structures. So I'm like, I can push that off a year by just saying I have to work on the book. Um, so it was it was 34 days in the Holiday Inn. I gained 35 pounds of fat.
Holy
I got
Jesus Christ.
incredibly addicted to caffeine pills. Um, I would work really hard at my job all week, and then I would, at 5 o'clock on Friday, leave, go to the Holiday Inn by the airport, totally ignore my wife and toddler, and then just like code like a
Oh
madman
my
all
goodness.
weekend. I sleep like 6 hours the first night, then 4 hours the next, then 1 hour on Sunday. Then I would go to work on Monday. Canceled our family vacation like an hour before we were supposed to leave.
Jesus
Stuff like that.
Christ.
I'm very lucky. My wife was so supportive, but
Ye-
it sucked. It was horrible. It was probably not worth it, but definitely learned way more about .NET than I would have just like at my job or doing a side project. Cool way to like get up to date on like all the little corners of .NET because I'm like web APIs. That's easy. Just like get request, action result. But apparently there's a lot of stuff going on in .NET.
Dude, but at the same time, when I see the book and I see your name on it, expert, 100%. What your sales friend was saying, absolutely true. It is crazy. And I think, like, if you write a book, especially if it, like, that was a thick book, by the way, and it's actually a physical copy that you could have. Yeah, like, just
Yeah.
like I'm gonna Photoshop me holding a fake book that I
Okay.
wrote like that, and that picture in itself is gonna
Yeah. There you
get a
go.
lot of cred street. But so I think like it's from my perspective, like yeah, you might think like maybe it was not as worth it from the standpoint like it's just gonna make people recognize you and people gonna throw like their babies on the street. But from like the
Yeah.
learning experience, I think it sounds like and, I mean, and it was definitely sounds like a terrible nightmare that was hard on your family. But I feel
Yeah,
like the
dude.
learning process of it made you like way better as a developer than before writing the book, I would say.
I was like very cracked out when I was writing it.
Jesus
And
Christ.
going to like, I used to go to this Holiday Inn, the one by the airport, and it was really busted. And there was a strip club behind it, apparently. And there would be like women from there, and they would see me and they'd be like, "Whoa, this guy again!"
What a sad
But the
story.
Holiday
It's
Inn
like
loves me, man. I'm
it's
like a gold platinum member. They like call me and they're like, "Where
yeah.
have you been?"
So this is the sad story. It's like somebody who works at the Holiday like in, they're like, man, that dude just loves strippers. And the fact is like, no, I'm just writing my goddamn
Yeah.
book. And
And
it's
I kept
like,
saying, "I'm
I
like,
don't know
I'm
what's
writing a
more sad.
programming
I don't
book."
know what's more sad is that like to claim to fame. It's like,
Yeah.
being the wild person who goes to Holiday Inn. But to me, like, but that basically kind of
Right,
like what you just did and outline like this commitment to write a book, go to hell and back, go beyond the Call of Duty. That's basically what it takes to be a developer. And kind of like you said at the beginning, if you don't have this kind of other calling from the inside that's almost like irrational to do these things,
Yeah,
maybe you're not geared for being a software engineer and maybe like another career path, because I'm tweaked out that way the
right,
same. Like I went on vacation, like I was in Thailand for like past almost three
dude,
months
awesome.
I coded every day. Like I was like, I didn't, people like, oh, did you do this and party? I'm like, no, I was working on this idea I had for the thing that I wanted to build. And then I went to tactical meetups and people like, what the hell's wrong with you? I'm like,
That's awesome, man.
this
Good for
is
you.
what I like, what I do. And so anyway, yeah, we'll definitely have to talk more. I don't want to keep you. Thank you
Oh
for
yeah,
giving
no
me
worries.
like time, and we'll do another round. But just to
Yeah,
close
man.
off,
Yeah,
I
fly me out to Paris,
Paris, I'll fly you
and then we can meet there, eat
to
baguettes, talk
Texas, and we could grab
computers.
lunch, maybe.
Okay.
But I was gonna
Yeah, man.
say,
I gotta get out there.
yeah, they'll be awesome to hang out with you. And then if I'm ever in Connecticut, like I don't think it's too far drive from where you're at there.
I'm in Alexandria actually,
Oh,
DC.
okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. So
So
this is what I was saying. My daughter is in Virginia, and so I'm gonna go visit her.
really,
Yeah, for a week. I'm flying into DC. I'm flying out of DC. So I'll hit you up. So
does she do programming? Not that that
she's in
matters.
the she's in the Navy. So like so
Oh, right,
basically,
right.
I'm gonna
Just
be
because I used
there.
to work for a Navy contractor, I know a lot of people in the
Oh,
programming world
nice.
with
So
Navy stuff.
yeah. So I'll hit you up when I'm there. I'm gonna be in Virginia like
Okay.
for a week, like in the beginning of July, and then like if it's not too far, it makes sense. Like it'll be cool to like get together. Especially if you're
Yeah,
near
man. We'll
DC.
go to
Like
Taco Bell.
I could ask her to drop me off like earlier to the airport, and then I could spend the day. Like yeah, it'll be really awesome.
Oh, man.
But anyway, to close off, just want to say thank you so much. Like Luke and
Yes.
I, one of the coolest things I was gonna say, by the way, the first time we met, you told me like your life story, and it was like literally similar struggles of like what I went through, and I realized it's like we're like it's like we're two souls like trying to achieve the same goal, and it really kind of like stood out to me because like I realized that like there's other people that are in the same thing trying to figure something out. They tried a few things before, not quite working out. They went from job to job to job, like different things. Like I think you sold cheese at one point, which I thought was like an
Yes,
amazing
sir.
story. And then you
Mhm.
just like, I am going to make this
That
career
failed.
shift.
Failed at that.
I'm going to become a developer. And then like literally same struggles, same stories. And I was like, and now here you are. And is it like amazing from the standpoint, like there's never fear that you're going to get laid off? That's not true. Like how am I, but the fact that you're now in this new career path, you enjoy what you're doing, it fits with your character, like kind of like the things that you're looking for. I'm like kind of doing the same thing. And like, I know if I get laid off, like I'm just going to try to like do whatever it
Oh,
takes to
yeah.
get the job. And that's basically
It's
kind of,
so worth it.
yeah,
It's really like
yeah,
when you have a great career versus a horrible one, it's so worth it. So do not
yeah,
give up, nerds. A robot's
yes,
not going to take your job.
yes,
It's going to be more opportunities. Things are bad, but they're not like that bad. Like there's still
yes,
tons of offers and recruiters. If you're willing to move for career changers, that's huge. Don't give up. Buy the book. Lie if you think it's horrible, and lie and leave a 5-star review.
yes,
Anyway,
definitely buy the book for
say it's
sure.
great.
Yeah.
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to help anyone any way I can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, thank you so much. Amazing. And
Thanks,
we'll
man.
chat more. And I'll reach out to you when I'm in Virginia to see if we could
Awesome.
get a lunch schedule. All right. Thanks a lot,
Okay,
Luke.
awesome,
Have
man.
a good rest of the evening.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.